Hello, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Connect Africa. So we are here today, joined by uh, Kwame Gonza. The topic will be, as you may have seen it, on what is going on in the eastern central part of the continent. Right now, actually, every region in the continent seems to have a voice in what's happening, which is a good thing, but also it has also the other side of the coin. But yeah, Kwame, so we have entered, first of all, welcome. And we have entered, what, a week actually. Today is a week since M23, as it has been reported, backed by the Rwandan forces, occupied Goma, the city of Goma, and from since then a lot has happened. They even at some point they said the M23 group, they will march to the capital, to Kinshasa. We have seen back and forth. The Eastern African Community has convened an urgent meeting. Also, now we have seen also a war of words between Ramaphosa of the SADC, so South Africa, and the Rwandan President Kagame. So I think it has developed to be like a regional war, and the ECOWAS also has said something today. I think the better point is the best thing is to start. Everyone seems to have a different view. People are divided over on social media. What is behind all this DRC crisis? I think let's start there. And of course, welcome.
Thank you very much, Mahlet, and I'm happy to be back. I hope you can hear me very well.
Now,
And
yeah.
yes, I just want to greet our people, everyone who's watching. We are back once again. We have not been, broadcasting together for some time, even though you have been, updating the people here and there about what is happening on the continent and within the Pan-African world, within the, the African world and externally. So I think you have been doing a good job, and I want to appreciate all those people who have been supporting the channel. It's a great work you are doing. It's a the topic you brought today is a very big one, and as you have said, many people have different views. Everyone has something to say about what is happening in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Some people with a reasonable amount of data backing up what they are saying. Some other people, emotions. They are saying things which are driven by emotions. Other people are saying things which they have heard. They are just regurgitating things which they have heard, but they have not really dug deep inside to understand this situation from a historical perspective, because everything that is happening is backed by history. And you may think that some of the things which are happening today are new, but these things are really not new. And I'll give you an example. Today, no, it was yesterday, uh, Canada came out to announce that it has imposed the sanctions. Also, trade, it has put up trade tariffs on the goods which are coming from the United States by 25%. And of course, this was in response to what Trump had done, that he had imposed the tariff on, I think, on energy, 10% on energy from Canada, and then other goods, 25%. And Mexico also did the same and retaliated. And we are seeing that Trump is also saying that he's going to impose tariffs on European goods. So what we are seeing here is that these two imperialists, this group, a group of imperialists, and we're talking about NATO, because all these guys are in NATO: Canada, Europe, the United States. You see that they are NATO, they are all Europeans, and they are fighting each other. And all of them, of course, are colonizers. All right, they are fighting with each other. Now, if you are looking at it from today, you may think that this is the first time this thing has happened. But when you go back to history, when you go back to history and examine, you will see that you will not be surprised, because in 1791 there was two superpowers during that period. There was France and there was Britain, and these guys, they disagreed on trade. Actually, this was the spark of what led to a liberation of Africans in San Domingo, or the country which we call Haiti today. That they noticed this friction between these countries, that they are fighting each other. Both of them, they are colonialists. Both of them are enslavers. They have been enslaving Africans. France was the one which was controlling San Domingo that period. So they started fighting each other because of trade. All right? It was trade. So Britain after losing the United States in 1776, when the United States got its independence, started sabotaging France because it saw that France was going to overtake it, in trade. So they started contesting, and Britain said that it is abolishing slavery. That's what Britain said. But all these, it just wanted to sabotage France so that France will not overtake, Britain economically. That's what it was trying to do. So they started fighting in the Atlantic, bombing each other's ships and stuff like that. France wants to take the slaves. Britain is saying that he will not take the slaves, not because Britain was so good and loved the slaves or loved the Africans, but because of trade. It was simply because of trade that they did not want to be overtaken as the superpower of the world, economic superpower. So this is what we are seeing even today, that we see the United States and its own imperialist allies, or its imperialist brothers and sisters. They are now fighting each other. So these things, they repeat, in history, if you go back and see them. So today, what we are seeing, if you trace it back to history, what we are seeing in the Democratic Republic of Congo, if you go back in history and examine, this conflict in the Democratic Republic of Congo is not starting today. It's not really starting today. These things started way back when Africans started saying that they want to get freedom in the Democratic Republic of Congo. This chaos did not start today, because we have seen a lot of people who have been saying this problem is because of Rwanda. But when we go back to 1960 and 1961, when Democratic Republic of Congo is getting independence, and all the chaos, outright brutality from Belgium, the United States, who fought very hard to retake, this colony, there was no Rwanda during that period. You see, so I think that it is important to go back to history. Now, I'm not saying that Rwanda is not playing a part, but this situation is much more complicated than Rwanda playing a part. You have to ask yourself, why is Rwanda playing a part in this particular situation? Is Rwanda simply playing a part because it wants to take resources from the Democratic Republic of Congo? Is that the reason? Is that the only reason? No, this is not the only reason. There's a couple of intertwining factors, and that is, of course, what we are trying to break down. But we will go even further than way back, from way back from 1961, when Democratic Republic of Congo gets its independence, and Ghana was over there in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Because if you look at doctors and because Belgium removed everything from the Democratic Republic of Congo when Congo said we want to get our independence, we want to govern ourselves. Is in the same way France, what it did in Guinea, all right, in Guinea Conakry, that they destroyed even the railways, they took even the bulbs, and Ghana came in and supplied the money. So what happened in the 1960s, 1960, 1961, when Democratic Republic of Congo wants to get its independence, Belgium removed everything, destroyed the papers, even all the doctors, they left. All right, because remember, they were not educating Africans during that period. It was only a few Africans who were educated. So to run a civil service, you need educated people. To run the hospitals, you need accountants, you need all these things. You need all these people, you need these human resources. So when the Africans in the Democratic Republic of Congo say that they want to get their independence, and they expel they expel Belgium, Belgium felt humiliated. So what it did is to remove everything and pack up their bags to go back to Belgium. But what they wanted still to retain, due to the mineral resources of the country and the exploitation that was going on, They wanted to retain control over the political structure. And so that is what they fought very hard, to sow chaos and cause confusion. So Ghana came in immediately and supplied doctors, supplied nurses, even for Ghana, which did not have so much. Because remember that in the 60s, Ghana had just become a republic, a fully independent state in 1960. That is when it became a republic. Remember, from 1957 until 1960, Ghana was still not a full republic. It was still under, Nkrumah was called the prime minister during that period from 1957 all the way to 1960. So it is until that period, because it was under Britain, just like how you see countries like Barbados, where they have only been having a prime minister, Jamaica, and all these. Okay, so Ghana from that period, 1957 to 1960, had not even become a full republic. So it became a republic for Nkrumah to be called the president in 1960. Now, in 1961, Ghana is immediately involved in the Democratic Republic of Congo to save, not only to save the Democratic Republic of Congo, but on the other side, in 1958, it had saved Guinea-Conakry after the French wanted to sabotage and humiliate, the Africans in Guinea. So Ghana is struggling in the Democratic Republic of Congo to save Congo so that the state will not collapse. Basically, Ghana is the one who built the foundation of the Democratic Republic of Congo under Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. And many people don't know about this. So this is why it is very important for people to go back and read, the history. Because Belgium, working with Britain, the United States CIA, and together with the United Nations, which was now a tool for the United States to use to sabotage Africa's independence, they mounted a pressure. They mounted a struggle. They put pressure on the state in Congo, a state which was just even building itself, that they wanted it to collapse. That is what basically they want. They wanted this functionality. Why? To retain control over these resources. But let us go back even further in 1880. In 1880, there's a map which was published, which I shared with you, Mahlet. I wish our people could get a chance to see that map, so we can have a look at it. I think that would be very, very important. Now, this map, before the continent was balkanized, the map was produced, I think, in 1880. But the continent, of course, we remember that it was balkanized in 1885. All right. It showed the kingdoms as they existed on the African continent. Now, what I'm going to say is a point of contention. Currently within the Democratic Republic of Congo itself, that the people who are in the Democratic Republic of Congo say that these people who are into M23, they are not Congolese, simply because they have, they speak Rwandese languages. They speak the Rwandese languages. But we have history even itself to guide us. When we pull out these maps and we look at them, the map tells us that even the kingdom of Rwanda itself, the ancient kingdom of Rwanda itself, extended all the way into the eastern democratic part of Congo. And it is not, so you I think you can magnify it a little bit. You can zoom it in a little bit, so that people can see. Yes, that's it. Yes, so zoom it in a little bit, a little more. All right. So if you look at the kingdom of Rwanda, you can see that it extends. On the other side, you see Bunyoro, which is in the current day Uganda. You see Buganda. You see the Toro kingdom. All right. And then you see all the other kingdoms which existed on the continent. Because remember, before the division by Europeans, this is how it appeared. This is how the continent, at least the people who drew up this map, this is how they envisioned it. Now, what I did yesterday is that I tried to verify whether this map is accurate. Okay, so I put it into artificial intelligence. I put it into ChatGPT to verify the accuracy of this map. But ChatGPT came up and told me that the map looks accurate in the way it is. All right, there's really it doesn't look manipulated. That is something that is being manipulated by someone. It looks accurate. Okay, so of course we would not say ChatGPT is perfect, but of course you have to start somewhere. All right, you have to argue. When you are arguing, you have to have something to argue with. If you are just arguing and saying these people are not from the Democratic Republic of Congo because they speak Rwandese languages, then you have to have something to argue to say that they don't belong there. But now what we are saying, that we have some map, ancient map of Africa, which is showing what existed, the kingdoms that existed. We see the the Ashanti King Empire is there. We can see it. We see the Home. We see the Sokoto Caliphate. We see all these kingdoms which existed. Even when we go to the south, we see Mozambique here. We see down. We see Angola, Kingdom of Rwanda. That one is a different one also, which is part of Angola today. We see Cape Colony, because by 1880, these guys had arrived there. These Dutch and whoever who came from Europe had arrived here to colonize, to colonize South Africa or the Zulu Empire. So you can see that we have these things. Now, what am I saying? I'm saying that the kingdom extended within the eastern part of Democratic Republic of Congo. And I'm not saying this because of this map, but even our leaders, because in Africa, our stories, our history was told through stories. People like Nyerere, a video which has been going viral even on the internet, has been talking about it. Nyerere spoke about this particular situation also, that these people, if you want to send them and you are saying they are not Rwandese, are you going to give them back their land, which, because they existed, their kingdom existed, and it was up to the colonial border, because the Republic of Congo itself is just a colonial territory. It was called the colony. It was called the colony of Congo. You see, so how are we going to now solve this particular situation? Then are we just going to say the problem started with 1994 and Rwanda attacked and stuff like that? So there's underlying issue now. Aside this historical outlook and the fact that the kingdom of Rwanda extended all the way into the current Democratic Republic of Congo, then we have the issue of the genocide in Rwanda. Now, the fact that Rwanda, as a kingdom, as an ancient kingdom, extended all the way to inside, now you have people who committed the genocide running into Rwanda and mixing with the Rwandese who are Congolese. So you can see how complicated now this situation has become. So now, according to how Kagame operates and how Rwanda operates today, due to the history, the psychological effect of the genocide, they behave like almost Israel. They do not believe that anyone who committed or anyone who is an enemy of Rwanda should be anywhere and not be reached. Their arms should be able to reach anyone where they are. So this is why you are seeing that Kagame is a very hardy person. He has become extreme. He's like, when he holds a position, you saw what happened recently when he crossed the border with Uganda. That when he holds a position, it is Museveni who capitulated in this particular situation. And why? Is because Museveni is interested in the East African community. But when Kagame holds a position, he does not capitulate. And you have seen him how he behaves. Even though he says that if South Africa wants to come to attack him, he's ready. They are ready to fight. You see, and South Africa is a very powerful country with very strong military. It's one of the most strongest militaries on the African continent. They have a lot of equipment. You see, so, but somebody stands and says we are ready if South Africa wants to fight. So he has a certain position. They have a certain position which they hold. Now they believe that if these people committed a genocide and they ran into Rwanda, we have a right to go there and hunt for them. All right. Now, aside this, now we have another situation that in the Democratic Republic of Congo, as King Kabala mentioned here the other time, deliberately the imperialist powers put an embargo on the Democratic Republic of Congo. Deliberately, that the Democratic Republic of Congo cannot buy weapons. They cannot have weapons to defend themselves. Just like what you are seeing that happened with Burkina Faso, Niger. These guys had put embargoes that these countries cannot buy weapons. So you ask why? So this is an imperialist approach, that they don't want these people to defend themselves. They don't want people to protect their country. All right? This is another situation. Now, this also In this, another thing which King Kabbalah spoke about when he was here is the incompetency within the Congolese elite, Democratic Republic of Congo. There is so much incompetency within the country itself that is disturbing. So as you are seeing, there's an intertwining group of factors that have come together: imperialism, history, right? Then we have the misfortune of the genocide, and one more thing. In 1964, the African heads of state, after forming the Organization of African Unity in 1963, they went to Egypt and they signed on to a document which they called the Cairo Declaration, which was backed by Nyerere himself. So, in one way or another, someone who could blame even Mwalimu Julius Nyerere that he did not do enough to foresee the problems that he was creating, whereby he said that the borders which we have, which are existent today, they are non-inviolable. Those borders are non-inviolable, which means that the countries had to maintain those borders. There's no way another African country, the principle of non-interference in the affairs of another African countries, okay, an African country was not allowed to interfere, is not allowed to interfere in the affairs of another African country. So this is another problem. So this document maintained that we should keep the borders which we inherited from the colonial countries. All right. And so this is, of course, what Nkrumah was fighting against, that we should unify the continent and move together. So Nyerere held this position. And in this, actually, they alienated Nkrumah in 1964 during that period. And of course, it was the working of imperialism, whether, Nyerere knew it or not. So now you have a cocktail of factors that it would be erroneous to put all the blame on one person. And this is what we are seeing today, that Rwanda has been pursuing these so-called rebels, which he calls the FDLR, who participated in the genocide, and they are in Congo, which Rwanda says that the government of the Democratic Republic of Congo is supporting the rebels who are rebelling against Rwanda. All right. Now, you have the Rwandese in the Democratic Republic of Congo who are Congolese under the M23. They are fighting against their government. And the government is saying they are not Rwandese. And the government in Democratic Republic of Congo is saying that these are being supported by the government in Rwanda. So I think you can see how complicated the situation is. Now, in 1994, the government in Rwanda says that he's going to go inside Democratic Republic of Congo and pursue these rebels who are hiding in the eastern part of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Mind you, this area has been almost abandoned, has not been developed. There's no roads. The place is dysfunctional. And this again goes back to the incompetence of the government in Kinshasa, that it has not taken the responsibility of developing this place. So that's another factor that has led to the infestation of this place with all kind of illegal activities. So in 1994, 1998, basically it was 1997 and 1998, Rwanda and Uganda, they meet in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Uganda had gone to pursue what it calls its own group of rebels, who are called the ADF. All right. Rwanda had gone to pursue the FDLR. Now they meet there, and they disagreed on certain things, and they started fighting against each other. Rwanda and Uganda, they fought bitterly and they killed each other over there. And of course, it ended even in taking resources, because the place is full of resources. So Uganda and Rwanda participated in taking some of the resources. But let us remember, when we are accusing Rwanda and Uganda of taking resources, that for 600 years, the West has been taking the resources. Because the accusation here is that Rwanda is taking the resources. You never hear that the West has taken the resources for 600 years and is still taking up to now. You see, the accusation is that Rwanda is taking the resources of the Democratic Republic of Congo and is killing the people. but the West wants to get a pass. Now, what do they base on to say that Rwanda has been taking the resources? They say that Rwanda, according to UN reports, some people have said that Rwanda has killed 7 million people. Kagame has killed 7 million people. Now, one of the people who have championed this narrative is called Rutendo Mutenyarare, who is from Zimbabwe. All right. Now, I argued with him on this particular aspect, and I asked him, can you produce for me a document which shows that Rwanda has killed, or Kagame has killed 7 million people? Because he was going all over social media, painting this and saying Rwanda is this, Rwanda, and invoking those terms, to see who, to what, and all these things, these tribal narratives, and he was invoking them all over social media. So I asked him on one of our platform called the Kwame Nkrumah Ideological Institute WhatsApp platform, and he could not produce the document which was saying that Rwanda, there's no evidence that Rwanda killed these 7 million people as they claim. There's no any document. Now, what I did yesterday, as I was hearing more of this, I went to ChatGPT also to verify, even on Google, to search for a document which says that Rwanda killed 7 million people, 6 and 7 million people. ChatGPT told me that there is no such document. Even though there is some reports from the UN which says there has been violation of human rights, there's no document which says that Rwanda or Kagame killed 6 or 7 million
Kwame,
people.
don't forget your point, but I want to come in here. Can we rely on sources that are coming from ChatGPT, or I don't know? Because somebody also made a question for that.
Yes, so,
when you say you verify the map with ChatGPT, that's why I want to clarify.
Yes, so what ChatGPT actually does, or AI, what it does is not 100% accurate. All right, but it gives you a starting point. What it does is that it aggregates data. It actually takes data, all the data on the internet, and aggregates it and answers your question according to that data which is related to that particular question. Okay, so it is not 100%. It's not 100%, but at least if you ask even Google that I need a document on the human rights violations in the Democratic Republic of Congo, or killing of people in the Democratic Republic of Congo, you should be able to, the report should be able to come out, because the UN itself publishes these reports. The reports are published. So Rutendo sent me a report. I searched inside the report. I never saw anywhere where they say that Rwanda killed 7 million people. There's nowhere. But this thing has been used to say that Kagame has killed 6 million people. Now, what I think that this is a trick. For me, I think that this is a trick. Now, this is not to put Rwanda off the hook, by the way. The fact that it has its own weaknesses, and it has, even Kagame himself admitted that the resources from the Democratic Republic of Congo are passing through Rwanda, and they end up in Dubai, and they end up in Russia, and he said they end up in New York. So he asked the question that why is no one blaming where those resources are going, and they are blaming Rwanda. So this is a critical question that all Africans, I think, also have to ask themselves. So he is guilty of allowing the resources to pass through Rwanda. I think that one,
you mean on the level of government officials have accused Rwanda? I mean, on social, if it is Pan-Africanist, this kind of media platform, I think we always
it's media.
have
it's basically
accused,
media.
We always have accused the West taking minerals from DRC. Right?
Yes, I mean, the Pan-Africans themselves have done that, but the general media, the mainstream media, even when you listen to SABC right now, that South Africa is having friction with Rwanda, SABC, the South African media, mainstream media, now is jumping on to parrot all these false narratives, which are not backed by any data, and saying Rwanda is stealing resources, backing M23 rebel and stuff like that. All right. So this is happening now. Certain people, they choose this. Now there's another trick that is happening, that is that the West and the United Nations, in order to distance themselves from this chaos which they have been part of for the last 600 years, they are trying to pile all the blame on Rwanda also. All right. Remember, the UN, there's reports, clear reports, even by the UN itself, that the United Nations soldiers have caused so much rape in the Democratic Republic of Congo have been raping women. UN, the
Yeah.
United Nations itself, but it doesn't take it when it is talking about this conflict. It doesn't talk about that. It says Rwanda. Even go and listen to the United Nations when they are talking. The representatives, all of them at the UN, these days they have been speaking about this issue. They don't talk about how the United Nations has been participating in raping women in the Democratic Republic of Congo. They don't talk about how reports are clear out there that the United Nations has participated in taking
Mhm.
resources from the Democratic Republic of Congo. They don't talk about it. Now, the US is not talking about that the uranium which it used to bomb Nagasaki and Hiroshima, it came from the Democratic Republic of Congo, that they have been taking resources, or Japan, or France, or Britain. All of them now are ganging up against Rwanda, and they are saying everything is Rwanda. Is Rwanda. So you go to even to their media platforms, France 24, whatever it is, everyone now is saying Rwanda. So there's a trick, there's a conspiracy to try to distance themselves from this. But we know that even if Rwanda is removed right now, this problem is not going to go away, at least from history. Now, there is something which I've not spoken about, that
But let me
Nkrumah,
add this on you. Sorry, like again, hold on. As much as I don't like to interrupt, but also sometimes it's important. Uh, from our chat section here, Charm de Jean said, uh, while this history is insightful, it has a little to do with the fact that Kagame signed a deal to provide UK with a resource which it does not have. So Congo will be the supplier, he says.
no, the thing is that when you say this, you have to provide a document which shows that he signed. You have to provide a
So,
source of
Charm,
document.
if
Give
you
us
have
the
a
source.
document,
Yes.
please show. Okay, and you
Yes,
go
so
on.
you have to share the document, and you have to or give us a source of that particular document which you are saying. So you provide a document. This is how we speak. This is how we talk. You have to talk with some level of facts. Now, when I tell you that Nkrumah dealt with this situation in the 1960s, when Rwanda was not yet there, we are not hearing about Kagame when Kagame was not even a president. He was still a young child. Nkrumah dealt with this particular situation to try to take back the Democratic Republic of Congo so that Africa can be the one who's controlling. And how did Nkrumah end up? It ended up with Nkrumah being overthrown after, Patrice Lumumba, the prime minister, being overthrown. So this situation is more chaotic than people oversimplify it and pile everything on Rwanda. So sanity is necessary. This is a country, this is a subject on which Nkrumah spent a full book. He dedicated a full book which was published in 1967, and he called the book "The Challenge of the Congo." Many people have not read this book. They are just coming out there and say everything is this, everything is this. So I think it's very dangerous to just run with sound bites and copy what people are saying and regurgitate it and be repeating it. I think it's necessary for people to go and study the whole subject, in its entirety. Historically, it's important to look at this subject, especially the Democratic Republic of Congo, from history, where the country is coming from itself. Before even the Democratic Republic of Congo was the Democratic Republic of Congo, what was there? How did the people live here? This is what we want to look at. Now, after independence, what happened after independence? We want to examine this. Now, then, how did Rwanda enter into play to start being a major player in this particular situation? So we need to examine this. So what are the elders saying about this particular situation? We have had, elders like Thabo Mbeki, who was the president of South Africa. He has spoken about this particular situation, and his position is the same as Nyerere's position, that there has been neglect of these Rwandese people in the Eastern there has been neglect of these, Congolese people of Rwandese descent in the Democratic Republic of Congo. All right, by the government, by the central government. So why is no one talking about these things? So we need to look at this particular situation comprehensively, not merely picking up the sound bites. And this does not remove the fact that our people are suffering in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and many people have died. Women are suffering. Women have been raped. All right, this does not remove that fact. And so someone has to applaud the resiliency of our people in the Democratic Republic of Congo. But then if we are saying that we are going to solve this problem, we cannot just jump on top and say we are going to solve it the way it is without going to the root of it, because this problem requires consensus, and not of one person or another even refusing to come to negotiate and talk about this particular situation, when the situation is bigger than some of us are thinking. All right, this is a much complicated situation that it requires the effort almost of the whole of Africa, to solve it. So it can't be that one person is saying this is how I want to solve it because I've come here, I'm the president, now this is how I want to do it and it must be done. You see, when there's so much at stake and there's so many people who are stakeholders in this particular situation. So this is basically to answer your question, that how did we get here? This is what I see, how we got to this particular situation, that there's so many underlying factors that for us to deal with them, we really need to work together. African Union, SADC, East African Community, and even ECOWAS has to come in, and even the Maghreb, because they have played a role also. Remember that when Lumumba was killed, Prime Minister Lumumba was killed, his children went to stay in Egypt. They went to stay with Nasser in Egypt. So you find that Egypt too could have a role to play. The northern African countries have so all of Africa has to play a part in solving this particular Congo problem, not just one person to come and dictate what should be done.
Yeah, interesting. But now on that viral video of Nyerere speaking, was it in New York? I think he was in New York.
Yeah. I think it was on
So,
the sidelines of the UN, something like that.
so he insisted, and in which also the African leaders have accepted it, that the colonial borders have, we have to accept it, and this is the way forward for Africa. So given that situation, how much of a relevance it has now, all this historical analysis or what you gave us?
I think that Nyerere may have looked at the chaotic situation of the time, what he thought that was very chaotic, and Nkrumah was looking at the future of the continent, because Nkrumah was saying that we should forget about those things, overemphasizing the borders, and look at how to develop the continent together by bringing, for example, a single military, which will stabilize the situation. But Nyerere was looking at it from a pessimistic, I think, what is the word? Pessimistic, a pessimism. Pessimism. Okay,
Yeah,
pessimistic, something like that. So, pessimism, I think, is also very dangerous. That you are always looking at things from a bad point of, or a negative point of view. Okay, so he thought that, okay, if you remove the borders, or if you work in a certain way that you are allowing different Africans to cross borders, come up and down, that it will cause chaos. Okay, it will cause chaos and tribes will start attacking each other and stuff like that. That was his outlook. That is what he thought. But again, in the same speech which you said in New York, in which he's talking about this issue of Congo and the Congolese of Rwandese descent, he raised a point that he did not know now how we are going to deal with the fact that tribes were divided. Because what we are dealing with between the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda now is the division of a tribe. That's basically it. That's basically what we are dealing with. Okay? Now, this division of a tribe by an European border has now been compounded by other factors. They have been mixed in here. The incompetence in Kinshasa, the neglect of these people, you see, now the external interests, which are so strong, the external interests are so strong that they are difficult to ignore. That even when you are talking about solving this problem, if you do not solve and remove the external interests, you are not going to solve it. And this is what Nkrumah was saying, that we need to unify the continent, have a single military, because single military will be able to stabilize the situation so that we can start the reconstruction process. But Nyerere was looking at it from a pessimistic point of view. Okay, a pessimism. Was looking at it as a a pessimistic, and he was not seeing how possible it was for us to reconstruct the continent quickly. He was not seeing how possible it was for us to pacify, like to take control over all over the African continent. That was Nyerere. But then, of course, he would admit later on in 1997 in Accra, he would say that Nkrumah was right. We should have united long time ago in order for us to pacify the whole continent and start rebuilding it. So there was fear in the heart of Nyerere. So even though you can look at it that he was partially right, that there could have been chaos if we just said, okay, cross border and stuff like that. Someone can think about it like that he was right to some extent. But he also recognized that we have another huge problem, that we have tribes which we are divided. Now, if you are saying, that's what he mentioned, if you are saying that these guys should go back to Rwanda, are you going to give back their kingdom, which comes all the way into Democratic Republic of Congo, the colonial Democratic Republic of Congo borders? Are you going to give them back their land so that they can go back? And of course, you want to say the same. Nyerere said that the borders should be kept. So you can say that this is a contradiction. It's a huge contradiction in itself. And so this again leaves Nkrumah being right, that the people should have been left to live how they wanted to live, even along these borders, and what was necessary, even though we could have recognized these borders virtually, but in reality, we should have left the people to do whatever they want, especially the tribes which are along these borders, to act as they want, as we fast track the development process, because the development process would have left us maybe living in our nations, which are tribes in themselves, but on a larger scale, we are being protected by a greater power, which was supposed to be a united Africa. So we would have been like children who are being protected by a huge family, which is the African continent. And then you have these tribes living within the state, the various states, all right, without being stopped from moving and moving about the continent as they want, according to how their tribes are. So it is a complicated situation. So I can only say that there's a contradiction there that needs to be settled, which even Nyerere himself could not settle. But in all this, for me, I see that Nkrumah was the one who was right in this particular situation. That if we had followed Nkrumah's approach, we could have been, I think, a little bit more stable with this particular situation.
Let me ask you this, Kwame. So personally, yourself, how do you see Paul Kagame's interest in this? Because for me, it sounded a little bit of defending Paul Kagame. I'm not saying I am on either side, because I have been completely exposed to different views equally. I mean, there are two views usually. The other one is supporting DRC. The other one is another one is supporting Paul Kagame. So yours, although you did not say it explicitly, it seems that you are defending Paul Kagame. Do you think that he's neutral and his interest is just to defend his country from to defend those tribes that he says they are living in Congo, and that's all? Like, what is his interest in all this?
No, so primarily
stands for you in the midst of this.
Yes. So from my analysis, of course, that's how I may sound, but that in reality, that's not what it is. What I'm trying to point out is that we need to get to the bottom of this particular situation, from a historical point of view. Now, primarily, Kagame is not really saying that he's defending the people of Rwandese descent in the Democratic Republic of Congo, just like what Putin is doing. Putin, what he's saying is that Putin has come to Ukraine to defend people of Russian descent because they are being oppressed by the government in Kiev. All right, that is what Putin is saying. That's the reason why he came there, because they were being oppressed and being stopped from speaking Russian. All right. Now, primarily, what Kagame is saying is not that he's coming to defend these people of Rwanda's descent. Actually, what he says, what Putin is saying, he allows even these people, these Ukrainians of Russian descent, to come to Russia. They are giving them passport. They have given them Russian passports. This is very different from what is happening between Rwanda and Democratic Republic of Congo. Primarily, Rwanda is not accepting these people to come back to Rwanda. It's not. Rwanda primarily is in there to fight against what he calls rebels who are rebelling against its country, who participated in the genocide. If you listen to Kagame, that's what he's saying. He's talking about FDLR. And he's saying that the government in Kinshasa is supporting these people are embedded within the army of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Do you see the point? So this situation is actually very different from that of Ukraine and Russia.
But I think I have heard him in that Eastern African Community Summit that bringing the Russia-Ukraine example to what's happening.
Yes.
I
so
remember the whole
he
story.
has. So no, remember the word I said. I said it primarily. Now, this does not mean that he would not want to defend them, or he does not have a soft spot. It does not mean that he does not have a soft spot for them. He has it, but primarily his argument is that he's trying to remove the rebel. Why is no one talking about FDLR? Everyone is talking about M23. So the support for M23, that one will be there. It's likely that it is there, right? But the primary argument, is that he's trying to hunt for the rebels who want to overthrow the government in Kigali and who participated in the genocide. So that's how complicated the situation now becomes. So in my argument, that's how I may sound, but it's because I'm looking at the fact that we should get to the bottom of this particular situation. We should get to the bottom of it and see where it came from, because it did not start. My argument is that this problem did not start in 1994 with the formation of Rwanda, or it did not start. It did not start 1994 with the stoppage of the Rwandan genocide, or it did not start in 1997 and 1998. This is very recent. This is very recent. 1998 is very recent. I'm saying that the reason why we have instability in the Democratic Republic of Congo is not because of Rwanda. This instability has been there since independence, and it is because of the more than 500 to 600 years of the arrival of the Europeans, one, who divided the continent and divided this place. Two, they discovered that there's a lot of minerals here and they refuse to go. They do not want to go. From today, from 600 years ago up to today, recently, people advocated that Apple should be sued in the courts, and all these companies, technology companies. The United States courts, they dismissed the case because people were suing. They were saying that these companies should be sued for exploitation of the Democratic Republic of Congo and causing a lot of problems in the country and instability and child labor. The courts in the United States, they dismissed the case that these companies cannot be sued. And we are talking about Tesla, we are talking about Microsoft, we are talking about Apple, all these countries. All these multinational companies, including Nvidia, who are making huge profits off these resources. So we want to dig deep into, the cause of this problem, instead of us just jumping on top and saying one person, because that's very easy. It's just very easy to say it's one person. Yet the problem is much more complicated than that. So in that attempt of me trying to dig deep into what really the situation is, that we are not the first people to deal with this particular situation. People like Nkrumah dealt with it. The Nyereres, were in 1960s, they dealt with it. They saw this problem already. So we are not the first people to deal with this problem. So we cannot behave like we are the first people to deal with it and pile all the blame on one person when this problem is historical. So that's what I'm saying. So in that attempt, I may sound like I'm defending Kagame.
Now, okay, let's move to our next question. Now, the fact that now the Eastern African community, which DRC belongs to, and also Southern African Development Community (SADC), which again DRC belongs to, they are now, in words of war, exchanging basically between Ramaphosa and Kagame. And now ECOWAS also has said something, I think, if I'm not mistaken, today. The continent that is known as so far as standing by and just watching when something is happening in the continent as if it's not our affair. Why all of a sudden these regional blocks are interested? I'm not saying, I mean, yes, we have made a noise when they are silent. I'm not trying to oppose it, but I'm just looking at it, what is there? Why?
Yeah, yeah. I think that there's a lot at stake. Number one, you remember that Biden has just been to the Democratic Republic of Congo, and they launched the so-called Lobito corridor. The Lobito corridor
In
basically goes
Angola,
from,
no? Did he
yes,
go to
yes,
the
it was in
Angola?
Angola, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
but
So the Lobito
say
corridor
anything.
railway project, yes. So all these things, when they intensify, the chaos you are seeing that is intensifying, we need to look at the bigger picture. Biden left Angola, and we know this project, this railway project. What is it basically for? The railway project is basically for extracting resources from the
Mhm.
Democratic Republic of Congo, and there's intensification. Why? Because they are trying to compete with China for the manufacturing of electric vehicles. That's basically what it is. So when we are talking about these things, I think we have to have a broader view of what is happening in this particular situation. And South Africa, under Ramaphosa, you saw Ramaphosa trying to get very close, recently to the United States, even though in one way has been resistant. But organizations like the EFF have been calling him a puppet of white monopoly capital. So for me, when the SADC came, I looked at it in a certain way when they came to the Democratic Republic of Congo, because they are coming. We are seeing this Lobito corridor. So this issue, that's why I say that is much more complicated. So I think that there's an attempt when the East African Regional Force, which was called the ICRAF, was deployed in the Eastern Congo. There's a video which went around, which was when they were announcing the formation of the East African Regional Force that was going to be deployed in the Democratic Republic of Congo. I would like people to go out and look at that video. In the room, there was South Korea, there was France, there was Britain, there was the United States, there was Rwanda, there was a lot of countries, all right? The usual suspects, including Japan, which are manufacturers of electronics, which are inside the electronics industry. Of course, you know that South Korea is part with Samsung and all these. China is also there. Okay, we know United States. That one is a usual suspect. We know it. Britain. We know these countries. They are manufacturers. Their defense industry depends on electronics. So they were in the room when they were announcing this so-called East African Regional Force, which was going to be deployed in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. This, personally, I believe, was an attempt by Africans to solve this problem by themselves. And in the room, you could see that there was some sort of fear and anxiety. You could see in the representatives of the United States, in the representatives of France, representatives of Britain, Korea. You could see that there was unease. There was some level of unease within this. So for me, I think that the Africans were close. Even I called the decision by President Tshisekedi to join, for the Democratic Republic of Congo to join the East African community. I called that decision the correct one. I think he had done the right thing. So that decision followed by the deployment of the East African Regional Force in the Democratic Republic of Congo. I think that this was the right decision. It was an attempt by Africans to handle this situation by themselves and solve the problems by themselves and find a solution, an African solution to the Congo problem. But the West did not like this particular situation. They did not like it. And so we see after this period, Tshisekedi going very close to the United States. All right, we see in 2020, because the redeployment, the announcement for the deployment of this force is around 2021. 2022, December, US Africa Summit, Tshisekedi starts moving close to the United States. I believe that they started speaking in his ear that these people, they cannot solve the problem. All right, what you are doing is not the right thing. And I believe that he listened to it. Or they told him that they will give him money, or they will bring investment to the country. So he started possibly listening to this, and simply because he wanted development in the country. All right, not because he was a bad person, but because he wanted development within the country. And so we see that he expels the East African Regional Force, and he says that it was not doing what he wanted, what he expected. He expected that they would go, and he said that they would go and confront the M23. I think that's what he said. And he said that they were not confronting the force. They were not confronting the M23. But the consensus within the East African community itself is that there has to be negotiation by all the forces which are contending. And that means the rebels and the government. And the government in the Congo had to recognize that these are citizens. And the government in Congo doesn't want to recognize that these are citizens. So now this is where now we have a problem. So for me, what I see is that this attempt by Africans to solve the problem by themselves was hijacked somehow. All right? To sow chaos. Because remember, for the West, it rules by divide and rule techniques. Once they see that you guys are coming together, then they will find a way of destroying that coming together by sowing seeds of discord. And so for me, that is what I see in this particular situation, that Tshisekedi, even inviting him to the East African community, which he joined willingly. He was invited to the East African community just recently on the meeting which ended, and he refused to come. No one told him to join. So for me, when I read these and I combine with the history and everything that has been happening, for the last 500 years, in the 60s, I see that something is not right. That is why I'm saying that we cannot solely pile all the blame and put it on Rwanda. There's a lot of factors which are at play in this particular situation that we are seeing.
Why does even Tshisekedi become a member of two blocks?
No, they are. He's a member of two blocks. He's a member of SADC.
Why was that? Like,
I think that for Tshisekedi. No, for me, I think that Tshisekedi had genuine intentions of wanting to settle this problem. Because remember, even when he came to power, he reached out to Kagame, he reached out to Rwanda.
Mm-hmm.
All right? Yes, there was genuine intention by Tshisekedi to try to solve this problem. But this does not mean that he did not have some misunderstanding of the situation in itself. He could also misunderstand the situation. But I think that the steps he took immediately when he came to power, they were the right steps. Reaching out to Rwanda, bringing Congo into the East African community, because he knew, and that is the right thing to do. He knew that you cannot solve this problem without the East African community. You cannot solve this problem without Rwanda, without Uganda, because Uganda has more than 1 million Congolese refugees in Western Uganda. Yes. So it's almost like Uganda is the one which governs eastern, eastern part of, the part which is bordering Uganda. It's almost like Uganda is the one who governs there. There's no roads. Uganda is even building a road there. Because currently, the Uganda military is in there under the invitation of Tshisekedi himself. Uganda military, the UPDF, is already in the Democratic Republic of Congo right now. He himself invited it. And this actually is one of the things which Kagame was complaining about recently in his long speech, where he said that he's ready even to fight with South Africa. He said that some countries, he was actually referring to Rwanda, that some countries have neglected this particular situation because for them, they have gotten what they want. He was actually referring to Uganda, because Museveni has been allowed to go into the Democratic Republic of Congo by Tshisekedi himself to pursue what he calls the ADF, because the ADF, remember, in 2020, when we had this situation, we are having the situation in Ethiopia, there was a bomb in Uganda, whereby the ADF
Yeah,
were
yeah,
starting
yeah,
to come.
yeah.
Yes, there was bombing in Kampala. So the ADF were coming and bombing in Kampala. So Tshisekedi allowed, and these are the ADF rebels. So Tshisekedi allowed Uganda to go to the Democratic Republic of Congo and pursue those rebels where they are, but he did not allow him to go far. They just allowed them in particular section. That's where they are. That's where Uganda is. All right, to pursue its own rebels. So the country is so huge. So this is the situation that we have, that the country is huge, that the government in Kinshasa, it cannot govern the whole country. It cannot pacify the whole country. It has not built a strong military to be able to pacify the country. And so but I think by 2020, 2023, we saw Museveni when he visited South Africa. He started also complaining about Tshisekedi. And he said that we don't understand Tshisekedi. Is it that he wants to be on the side of Africans, or he wants to be on the side of imperialists? He should
Yeah.
decide where he wants to be. You
We
see?
did,
So he
yeah.
made these statements. Yes, he made these statements. So what does this tell you? It tells you that Tshisekedi started on the right track. He started on the right track, and then he started listening to the Americans and the Europeans. So when he started that, and these guys were speaking in his ear and telling him that he should not listen to what the East African community is saying, they started moving him in a different direction. So this is the chaos which I'm telling you, that this is divide and conquer tactics which they were using. Why? For them, what they want is the resources. They don't care what you have there. They don't care how many people die. Remember that France participated in the people who died. In the UN participated, left it, and people died. In some cases, they were even giving out weapons. The people who died in the Rwandan genocide, the 1 million people, these countries participated. Some of them they armed, and they were, empowering the people who were massacring and stuff like that. So you see, this particular situation is much more complicated than people just coming and saying, is because of this and this. The resources have been stolen for ages and ages. All right. So I think that is much more complicated. The situation is much, much more complicated. And it requires the whole of Africa, SADC, East African community, the regional tribal leaders within these areas, all right, the scholars, the African scholars, people like Lumumba have to be there. Okay, Piolo Lumumba, people like Dr. Arikana, all these people have to be part. It cannot be just Tshisekedi saying that this is what I want. All right, because you don't know everything, and you are not the only stakeholder. All right, because even if we go to war, if we decide to go to war, if somebody accepts to give Congo the weapons and goes to war with Rwanda, it will. I said this and I mentioned this to you, that it would just even cause much more chaos. All right, if somebody took weapons and started bombing inside Rwanda, it would unleash something you have never seen in this region, a very chaotic and very dangerous situation. Because Rwanda has the capability of mobilizing 2 million people out of the 4 million men it has. It has that capability. It's just like Israel. The country is like Israel, how you see it. They are war-hardened people. So they have the capability of mobilizing 2 million people, 2 million, fighters, and they will overwhelm the Democratic Republic of Congo. And I don't believe that Uganda can stand by when Rwanda is attacked. I don't believe that it can stand by. It would not allow, because it would say that there's going to be a genocide and stuff like that, and it would intervene and support Rwanda. It
I
would
very
start.
much think that Museveni and Kagame are on the same page. They are just playing
No,
us.
these are brothers. They
Yeah.
have some disagreements. Like everyone has been saying, it is true that Kagame, studied in Rwanda. He grew up in Rwanda. He was in the Ugandan military and military intelligence. So these are brothers, but they have disagreements once in a while. Like I said, Rwanda recently closed its border for almost 3 years. Closed the border with Uganda. Why? Disagreement. So things are not as simple as people paint them. But Uganda, I believe that would not stand by if someone attacked Rwanda. I don't believe that Uganda would stand by. They would join in, and it would be chaos. So that's why I say that these war drums people are beating up and stuff like that is very, very dangerous. It's extremely dangerous. And you are seeing that Museveni has kept quiet. He's looking at Ramaphosa with suspicion. You see? is starting to look at Ramaphosa with a lot of suspicion. So this is very dangerous in itself. So the East African community now needs to talk to SADC. Otherwise, we may have something very, very dangerous, which we, and of course the Americans and the Europeans will sit on the side and they will pour more fire in. They will encourage you to fight each other. That's what they will do. So I think that it's a much more complicated situation, which needs all of us to participate and stabilize the situation once and for all. But on
But
the whole,
uh, yeah,
on
I
the
want
whole,
to bring a different thing.
without a united, Africa, it is going to be very difficult to stabilize this particular situation.
Uh, yeah. So what I was thinking was actually, when Donald Trump came to power, was it in 2022? Was it? No, 2020? 2020.
2020.
Yeah. So it was during, I think, elections, the same day,
I think after
November.
Obama, no, after Obama, was it 2020,
Yeah,
2019,
2020.
2020?
You know why? Because I know that is a war in Ethiopia started. So it was in November. That is when you know who won, right? I think November we knew the result. And on that same day, the northern part of Ethiopia, the rebels have attacked the government military. And then just like that, the war broke out. It went on for 2 years until November 2022. Now, at the same time, after his inauguration, I don't know if it has been even a week, this war broke out. And I'm just trying to connect dots. Are you thinking what I am thinking? I mean, and if so, why? Or there is no connection? What do you think of this?
Malik, can you come again, please?
I was saying we had the northern part of Ethiopia, that war j- just after, we knew Donald Trump was elected. That was November 2022, and the war went on for 2 years. And you have seen what kind of media war we have had in addition to the battle on the ground. And then now again, when Donald Trump comes and, after maybe a week after his inauguration, this crisis or war broke out. Do you see anything in this? I mean, do you think it's a coincidence? I think it's more than a coincidence.
No, so what I see is that the US is in a whole lot of trouble. As a country, the US is in a huge trouble. So he's trying to get out all that trouble which it is in. And there's a political scientist who I'm very fond of called Eric Lee. I was listening to his latest analysis on the situation. He said that the US, the election of Donald Trump, in the first term,
Yeah,
which you
let me
mentioned.
before you start, let me just clarify. Yeah, you are right. It was on the war in Ethiopia. It broke out during election. I think November was the election. Sorry. So thank you, Dejuma. It was so yeah, it was Donald Trump, but the election was going on. So after that, Biden was elected. He's right. All
Yeah,
right.
so he said that the US, the election of Trump during the Trump won when he came the first time and defeated Hillary Clinton. It was an attempt by the US to make corrections after the United States elite had made a lot of mistakes, because its democracy as a system, it has some level of self-correction, what they call self-correction, that whenever things are going in the wrong way, there may be some attempt to make corrections. All right, that is why you see that they don't have an outright majority win elections. Sometimes is the electoral college which votes you and stuff like that. You can win majority vote and you lose the electoral vote and stuff like that, or you can lose the majority vote and you win the electoral vote, in that sense. So he said that it was an attempt by the US to make corrections after a lot of mistakes, the war in Iraq, Vietnam, Afghanistan, Libya, and all these, Somalia, all these wars they have been starting and destroying, they have cost them. So in previously, he had said that the US has been he said that previously the US has been overextending itself in what he called imperial overreach, to the point that this imperial overreach is now costing it. The gains it is getting from this imperial overreach are less than the losses. It is losing much more. So there is an attempt to withdraw. And that was the first time when Trump was elected. Withdraw from the world. All right. Now, this withdrawal did not mean that the US has completely withdrawn from the world, is not doing anything, but withdraw in a sense that don't spend money on certain things, like, for example, this gender correctness and what all these all these things, but use brute force. Use the normal brute force. Send out the CIA, overthrow people over there, start coups and stuff like that, and take the resources, but do not spend. All right. Do not spend. And so that's what you are seeing. That's what you are seeing even today, or even the situation that you are talking about. There is an attempt. And since you spoke about Eric Prince, who said that they should recolonize Africa, I think you saw that video which was going around. One guy, Eric Prince, who started Blackwater, which was a private military company that participated in the Iraq War, he said that they should recognize Africa, that some of these countries should just recolonize them. These are the people who have the Trump mentality. They should use brute force. And you saw Trump's comments recently when it came to South Africa. That South Africa is treating people a certain way. They should remove. So brute force, use the normal imperialist, colonialist force. Why? Because we are trying to rebuild. We need to rebuild quickly. That's what you are seeing Trump is been saying. America first. That's basically what it means. When you hear people like Elon Musk, Western civilization is going to collapse with this kind of mentality, the Joe Biden mentality and all this, the democratic mentality. Elon Musk is simply a white supremacist. That's basically what it is. That's why you are saying that he's backing, he backs Trump. He's only concerned about white civilization. That's why he says Western civilization. All right. So the rebuilding is what is happening. And so to answer your question, it is not a coincidence. It is not a coincidence that all these things are happening, that they don't want to spend, but they want to take what you have. So that's basically the situation that is, happening.
Yeah. What is the way out? Yes, you said this is a very much complicated thing, and everybody has to, come in the media platform, and in creating awareness, and also those regional blocs, even the African Union. But do you see a way out? Like, are you pessimist or optimist? What will happen? Like,
And so,
where is this
unfortunately,
going? Do you think Rwanda will push for a regime change or M23? And
yeah,
or
I
do you
think
think
really, I
maybe
think that
a brave general like Assimi Goita and like Ibrahim Traore will come out and
actually,
liberate DRC?
actually, Tshisekedi, I saw some rumors that Tshisekedi went to visit Mali. I don't know whether
No.
you have seen those news. I've seen
Serious?
some news
No.
somewhere. Yes, I've seen
No.
some rumors. I've seen some news around that Tshisekedi went to visit
Ah,
Mali to see
people are
Assimi
playing
Goita.
with our emotion, my brother.
Yeah. So what I see is that if I think that if President Tshisekedi continues to play that card, it may be very dangerous. But also, this situation has exposed the weakness of the regional bodies, that they don't have the capacity. And that's why you are seeing that Kagame was complaining about the East African community. That how can people behave like this? How can the East African community not be able to, to solve this problem? How can it not be able to rein in and bring some sanity in this particular situation? But I think that the East African community has tried to bring sense into Tshisekedi, to tell him that he cannot just say that he will not accept to negotiate, because these are people who are around this. I think the East African community has made it clear. That is why Tshisekedi has tried to distance himself from this. So, as you have said, what I see is that if he continues this attitude, some sort of regional regime change may come like that. and of course he may have help from the West, but I think that it's not. We cannot rule out that particular situation. Like we cannot rule out a situation like that. It's likely it could happen. It could happen. He may get the Sadiq, whatever it is, but we may enter a very, very dangerous, situation that if he's backed by Sadiq and then Sadiq comes into confrontation with the East African community, we could have a
Let's talk
continental.
about South Africa slash SADC. What's South Africa's interest in DRC? I mean,
And
we
no,
talked about
South
so much
Africa,
about Rwanda.
South Africa came because it was invited by the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Yes, the
And because they
SADC.
have a pact that if you interfere or if there's instability in any member of the, this is what is funny here. There's something which is which is really funny. They have a pact that if a member of SADC has an instability or a situation, a security threat, the SADC would come and help to stabilize the situation. All right, we help to stabilize the situation, and that's what SADC came to do. Was invited by Tshisekedi to come and do. But there's another situation which happened in Mozambique, that there was terrorists, jihadists who attacked Mozambique. SADC went there and failed to stabilize the situation. Rwanda went there and stabilized the situation in Mozambique. It is until Rwanda deployed in Mozambique that the situation was able to stabilize. So you can see why. so you can see how complicated this situation. You can see how difficult the situation that we are dealing with, and the people who are
But
talking about
I
war.
read that Rwanda was also backed by France because France has the companies there and they want a cover for that. So they don't have French military like in
Absolutely, it's
Western
politics.
African. Yes,
Yes,
and
it's politics. It's imperialist politics. So it's imperialist politics. So that one is also possible because Total is over there in drilling for gas, is mining gas, because Mozambique has some of the biggest gas reserves in the world actually. So uh, but again, it is until Rwanda went there and the situation stabilized that the jihadists were reined in, and the Rwandan military was able to work with the Mozambique military. So that's why I said that the people who are wishing for war, I mean, they don't know what they are talking about. It's very, very dangerous. It's very dangerous. These two countries they are war hardened, right? They are war hardened, and they have already shown you the example what they are capable of. Uganda has been to Somalia, has been to Central African Republic, has been to South Sudan. So these countries are war hardened in a way that is very difficult to wish for a war in this particular area and talk about SADC, confronting East African community and stuff
why
like that.
they are
In
apart
a
from
war.
the embargo, why DRC's national army is so incapacitated for so
So
long?
that's
First,
why I say that it is incompetence. Even the leadership. This situation is not solely external, but even internally, there's a lot of incompetence within the Congo itself as a country, that the leaders cannot really organize themselves to build like a functional military. That a small country like Rwanda can build a functional military to protect it, but they cannot themselves. They cannot build a functional military with a country of, I think, more than 100 million people. You cannot build a functional military. So this speaks also to incompetence. So all these problems are not solely external, but even internally. So that's why we said this situation is much more complicated than people just waking up and jumping around and saying it's Rwanda, it's this and stuff like that. It's not, alone. It's not that alone. The incapacitation of Democratic Republic of Congo has been deliberate, especially by the West, by the UN, which has put embargo on the country not to have a functional meet. This one is deliberate. That's why everything leads back to imperialists and external this imperialistic control. But even within the country itself, internally, the leaders are supposed to find a way of organizing themselves. And how? At least wrap yourself around the strong neighbors and find a way of working with them instead of being inconsistent. Because if you say today you are working with the East African community, another day you say you are working with the Americans, and another day you are working with SADC, I mean, this is absolute incompetency. This is inconsistency and incompetence. That means you don't know where you are going. You see, and this is like playing with fire. It's playing with fire. So there's huge incompetency within the country itself, and I think King Kabbalah too spoke about it here. That there's a lot of incompetence and weakness within the country itself. So it's a much more complicated situation, my sister. It's a much more
Yeah.
complicated situation. There's a lot of things that have to be solved. So not just one thing, because even if you remove the Rwanda out of the picture right now, and you say, okay, Rwanda has agreed now to take back all the people of Rwanda's descent, you will find that all these problems, they will not go away from the Democratic Republic of Congo at all. They will not. They may even escalate much more because of the incompetency and the foreign interests within this country. So this is how I want people to look at it. It's not merely as someone who's saying, okay, oh, Rwanda is innocent. It's not innocent. Rwanda is not innocent, or President Kagame is not innocent. And he himself, he has said it, that the resources pass here and they go somewhere. So he's not innocent. This is a recognition of the fact that he's not innocent in this. But he's also pointing out to you that there's a greater player, that our country is too small even to confront that greater player. That if we cut off these resources from going, we will be accused for some greater things which you people, you may even not know. He made these statements that if we cut off the resources, if we cut off, where are they going? If we cut them off, that we will be accused of some.
Is
There's a
this
video.
after the war broke out? This speech?
No, I think it was last year when he made these statements. Still, when Kisekedi went to the UN and was making all these flagrant, statements. So ever since this situation, so this is when he made this statement. That video is present even on YouTube. So this is somebody who's admitting that he's not innocent, but there's a greater force which he even himself probably fears to confront, that if he blocks off the resources from going. So I think that these are facts. What I'm saying, that these are facts that need to be recognized by all those who are just mentioning. It's not just a wake up, you just wake up. A small country like Rwanda, how can it confront? Can it confront the United States or all the European imperialistic powers?
Okay.
It can't. It can't. You
There is
see?
a question for you from the Juma Boutique. I said welcome on the chat, but I would like to say also here welcome. Most of you who were here, as we said, we have not been here for a while. We didn't do a program together with Kwame, but again, we see you all. We are so happy and motivated. Now, Dejuma asked Congo's inability to acquire military hardware, for example. The president is so grossly out of his depths. Isn't he a legacy politician? Question.
I don't understand that question very
Me
well.
too. Yeah. Can you? It's like
Maybe
something is
you can
missing.
rephrase it. You can
Yeah,
rephrase
Dejuma.
that
So if
question.
you hear us, you can you send us a question again?
But the failure, the inability to acquire weapons by the Democratic Republic of Congo is due to the fact that the UN itself recognized that the weapons, that it recognized that the government, the military, had been also oppressing those people in the eastern part of the country. You see, so there's a recognition. That recognition also, that the government was oppressing the people in Eastern, the so-called Rwandese descent people. So that's why that embargo also was put there. You see, so it's the situation is much more difficult. It's much more difficult. Yeah, so this is why it is there.
Okay, yeah, all right then. Yeah, Dejuma, if you have heard us, we were saying if you can rephrase this question where you ask about a legacy, isn't Tshisekedi or DRC government a legacy politician or something? Congo question, that the president is the son of family of an old power broker. Uh, Tshisekedi? I'm not sure. It was Joseph Kabila. Tshisekedi is he came. His family was into politics. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. So I don't think we have other questions. And the agreement between Belgium and Rwanda, Dejuma said it's available on Sky and Guardian newspaper. So we will look at it.
He said that which one is available?
Sky, the one, the mineral sale agreement between Rwanda and Belgium, I think.
Did they
Sky,
say Britain? I think the other person was saying Britain.
Britain. There was one who said UK, yeah, also. But I think Dejuma
The
said
first person said.
Belgium and Rwanda. Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. So yeah, let's see. Did any statement from the Sahel states on DRC? No.
I heard that there was some statement uh, from ECOWAS. I'm not very sure, but I heard there was some sort of statement. I've not checked it. I think I need to confirm that.
Why Uganda is silent with all this involvement? I don't think Uganda is silent. They have made their voice through the Eastern African Community Summit, Gize Geta.
Yeah, Uganda has said, Museveni has
Museveni
said
said.
that Tshisekedi has to come to the table. He cannot say that he will not negotiate. That's what Museveni said. That these people, he has to negotiate with them. He cannot just dismiss them and say he will not negotiate because he's calling them Rwandese. That he will not negotiate with them. So that's what Uganda has said. But I think Uganda should do more than that. Museveni is an elder statesman in the region. He should have put much more pressure on Tshisekedi, other than leaving. There's a tendency by African heads of state to leave things as if they will solve problems. They will solve themselves, and this is why we
Mhm.
see that they leave these problems on autopilot. That these problems will solve themselves, and hence we find foreigners, they are intervening everywhere on the African continent. So
Mhm.
somebody sits on the side like Museveni and says Tshisekedi has to come and negotiate. But you have to put pressure. You are the elder statesman in the region. You people in the region, you have to put a lot of pressure on him. Go and mobilize Sadiq. Why didn't you mobilize Sadiq even before these problems came? Because you are sitting at home, you think that these problems are going to solve themselves, automatically. They will just go away and disappear. Like what Trump said about COVID, that it will just disappear. These things cannot just disappear like that because they are historical. They have been there for, these problems have been existent for a very long time. So how can you say that they are just going to disappear like that? I mean, this has, a lot to, African heads of state have a lot to be blamed for.
But by the way, was it today that Paul Kagame had an interview with CNN and he had denied there's no Rwandan force in Eastern DRC. At least the title goes like that. Yeah.
No, so the M20, like legally, there's no random force in the DRC. All right, there's the support, it can be there. Like for example, Uganda used to support the Sudanese people, the
But
liberation
those
force.
UN peacekeeping missions, that's what they said. That's what they gave their word when uh, Sunday night,
But the
was it
UN,
Sunday morning? They said they have seen
no,
Rwandan forces.
but the UN is a failure. The UN itself has failed in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Already has atrocities
That's
which it has
another
committed.
topic, but they say
Yes,
we have seen
but they
Rwanda.
want the UN tries to paint itself good by painting another one, that the other one is the problem. And all the Western countries, that is what they are trying to do. The United Nations, the US, and all these countries who are taking the resources, they're trying to pile all the blame on this guy, this one guy who has been identified is the problem. So all the problems, this is the guy. So the failures, because if you remember in the past, since 2021, Kagame has been talking about UN. Why has the UN not been able to solve this problem when it has been there? And he said, actually, Kagame said that if Rwandan military had been given the opportunity to go there and solve that problem, we will solve it in 1 year, in a very short period. But the UN has been there for more than 20 years. It has not done anything. So now what do you think that the UN is going to do? Now they are going to turn around and say, this guy is the problem. Why? Because they are trying to clean themselves. They are trying to gain some form of favor that, okay, these UN guys are doing good. They are good. Okay, they should be allowed to stay. But remember, what Tshisekedi, remember, Tshisekedi had even said that he wants the UN out last year. You
Yeah.
remember? Yes,
He
he
it
gave
was
them a few months
repeatedly
to
he
be
was
out.
asking. Yeah.
So now, why do you think the UN is still there? So this is why I said people have to be very careful
But
when they
they
are
said
talking about this
they will
particular
go
situation.
out phase by phase. Maybe I think
No,
even they
he told
started
them to go within a few months. It was
immediately. He
last
said
year.
that. Yeah,
No, it
true.
was 2022. Mallet, I think it was 2022 or 2023. I think it was 2023. I think it was in
In the
September, and he
UN
gave them,
General Assembly. Yeah.
yes, he gave them a few months before December. It was September, and he gave them before December. They have to pull out. Do you remember that period is when the UN was being pushed out from Mali, and it was pushed out from Mali. It's not there anymore. Why is it still there in the Democratic Republic of Congo? So this is where the double standards of Tshisekedi now are coming in, because he identified the UN as being a problem. It has not participated. It has not done well. It has participated in raping even women. But now the UN has been there. So why has it been there? So the UN is just basically trying to clean itself by shifting the blame so that it's trying to make itself look good. That's basically what it is. So, and all the Western countries, that's what they are trying to do. Put the blame on one person. For me, that is what that's what I'm cautious about. That's what I'm resisting. That we cannot do that. We have to look at the situation comprehensively in its entirety. We cannot just choose out one person and say this is the part. Or we cannot just say it's because Congo is incompetent. Why are we not saying that it's because the leadership in Congo is incompetent? That's why everything should be on the leadership in the Democratic Republic of Congo because it's incompetent. No, we are not saying that. We are saying that is a multiplicity of factors, at the top of that being the Western foreign interests, mining interests. That is what is at the top of this particular situation. Then these other factors are just contributing. These other people, groups are just tools, which we are looking at as if they are the main issue. They are not the main issue. Some of these are just contributing factors, but the main issue is the interests within this particular space by the foreign colonial interests, because they want the resources to build their companies, to sustain their economies. That is the main issue here that we are talking about. So we cannot carry then and put it on one person and say it's because the leadership in the Democratic Republic of Congo is weak, or is incompetent, or is corrupt. No. Why is that leadership corrupt? Why is it incompetent? Why is it, why is Rwanda there? It's because there's other factors. You see? So I think that I'm trying to stretch people's minds here so that we can look at this situation comprehensively, not just in a narrow, nutshell. That's basically what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, so I think thank you very much. It's 1 hour and a half. That's enough for us. The question is, it's endless. There are so many things unanswered. But as time goes by, hopefully these things will be resolved as soon as possible. But if not, we will bring you updates and continue the discussion, the conversation, and ask us if there's anything particularly, or any guests that you want us to invite, or a topic related to this, then we will do that. Somebody asked why AU is silent. I mean, AU has condemned when it happened, but then after that, AU in its principles, it gives priority for the regional blocks to do what they need to do. That's why when the regional blocs are involved, you don't see AU or you don't hear anything. But it has condemned on Monday with everybody else when the city of Goma has fallen under M23. That was it. Thank you, Kwame, and thank you, everyone. For being here, for your comments, suggestions, questions, everything. So continue to support us through our PayPal account and buy me a coffee link. And James Struck, oh my God, thank you very much. It was. When it started, he donated a super chat, €10, or was it $10? But anyway, yeah, thank you. I'd like to say that. So, yeah, Gize Geta, Osie De Juma, James Strack, Imhotep, Pedro, Grace, Glenn, all of you. Thank you. Maybe I missed someone. Bonsu, Big Well, Arnett. Yeah, thank you all. And we'll see you on the next one. And bye-bye. Maybe I want to announce it a week from today. Next week, Monday, I would like to say this. So prepare. We're going to share the flyer widely, so you share it with your network. Her Excellency Dr. Aritana Chombori will be here at Connect Africa, and she will give us more details on what her organization ADDI has organized recently. For those of you who have questions, to take part, to become the Sahelian states in AES. So she will answer all that questions. So next week on Monday, I think around the same time, but we will share the link. And thank you, Kwame. So ciao, ciao. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.